Hello and welcome. My name is Marc Kosciejew, and I'm a lecturer and former head of Department of Library, Information and Archive Sciences in the Faculty of Media and Knowledge Sciences at the University of Malta. I would like to thank you for attending and viewing my presentation today, and I would also like to thank the organizers, presenters, and other participants at this year's Around the World Conference on Digital Media in a Post-Truth Era. In this presentation, I want to help continue an important and ongoing conversation about fake information and post-truth, and present some practical steps on how to identify and counter such corrosive phenomena. So, to begin, post-truth information, or identifying and countering fake information. We have entered the era of post-truth. This post-truth era is one in which fake information has considerable influence over people's perceptions and beliefs to the detriment of factual and credible information. Many people seem to no longer want objective information. Instead, they seem to prefer subjective information that conforms to and supports their particular worldview. Post-truth has become so forceful that the Oxford Dictionaries declared it the 2016 International Word of the Year. It is defined as, quote, relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief, unquote. Post-truth involves consuming and even willingly embracing dubious, misleading, and or questionable information, even when credible and factual information is available, because it agrees or aligns with one's personal perspectives. The post-truth era has been shaped in large part by the internet, by information communication technologies, or ICTs, and especially by social media platforms and services. According to Farhad Manjoo of the New York Times, there is more reason to despair about truth in the online age. Why? Because if you study the dynamics of how information moves online today, pretty much everything conspires against truth. He argues that digital technologies and platforms and services are loosening our grip on the truth. The president of Oxford Dictionaries, Casper Grothwall, similarly notes how social media played a significant role in spreading and promoting fake information, explaining that post-truth has been fueled by the rise of social media as a news source and a growing distrust of facts offered up by the establishment. Social media rapidly spreads information across its platforms. Consequently, many people have more information from a wide variety of sources at their disposal than ever before. Some social and technology analysts predicted that this widespread and easy access to so much diverse information would usher in a more rational age of facts and truthfulness. But this rational age has never materialized. A more seemingly irrational time has emerged in its place, where fakery and subjectivity are valued as much as, and increasingly more than, authenticity and objectivity. It appears that when confronted with so much information from so many different sources, many people tend to gravitate to information that confirms their biases instead of factual, truthful information. This so-called confirmation bias illuminates the expansion of segregated information echo chambers. Social media platforms and services, coupled with ICTs and the internet, allow individuals to access, to create, and to share subjective information within effectively closed-off online information enclaves or ghettos. For example, in a recent study published by Italy's IMT School for Advanced Studies, Lucca, homogeneous online networks encourage fake information to persist and to grow. According to the study's researchers, this creates an information ecosystem in which the truth value of the information doesn't matter. All that matters is whether the information fits in your narrative. So if one sees something that they don't like, they can easily close it or tap it away to something more agreeable. Thus, one can remain within their own information echo chamber or enclave or ghetto, spreading and sharing slanted information with like-minded people and groups. There are hundreds of fake news websites that deliberately imitate legitimate newspapers, from the satirical and the silly to the misleading and the malignant. Satirical newspapers, like The Onion, or purposely misleading ones, exist online alongside legitimate newspapers. Further, many search engines and social media platforms and services present them as more or less equivalent. Fake information from fake newspapers will be curated and displayed with real information from real newspapers in, for example, Facebook news feeds, Twitter postings, Google or Bing search results, etc., and be just as widely read and shared. Since more people are consuming news via social media platforms like Facebook, they are exposed to more information from fake news sources. And many people are sharing fake information across their social media, which in turn is collected by many newsrooms. For example, the online fake newspaper, The National Report, created by a person going by the fake name of Alan Montgomery, peddles fake information. Attracting readership to fake information requires two main components: an enticing headline, sometimes called clickbait, and a realistic newspaper name and internet domain name. Montgomery argues that the headline is key, and the domain name itself is very much part of the formula. You need to have a fake news site that looks as legitimate as can be. The fake report's content, at least its first half, must appear reasonable too, and then it can descend into falsehoods. Montgomery states that beyond the headline and the first couple of paragraphs, people totally stop reading. So as long as the first 2 or 3 paragraphs sound like legitimate news, then you can do whatever you want at the end of the story and make it ridiculous. Ironically, this fake newspaper, The National Report, was recently featured in an authentic news report created by the BBC, a real news operation, to highlight the growing influence of fake news on both the news industry and people's news consumption habits. In other words, more blurring of the real-fake boundary. Fake news is also increasingly being reported as credible by the mainstream media. Craig Silverman of the news aggregator BuzzFeed discusses how a fake news website might publish a hoax, then because it's getting social attention, another site might pick it up, write that story as though it's true, and may not link back to the original fake news website. So it spreads across social media, shared by many people, and then collected by the mainstream legitimate news. Silverman of BuzzFeed, he states that it's a chain reaction until at some point, a journalist at a largely credible outlet might see it and quickly write something up, because many journalists are trying to write as many stories as possible and write stories that get traffic and social attention. The incentive is towards producing more and checking less. Many newspapers have not been able to fully catch or catch up to fake information online. According to Anthony Adornato, a journalism professor at Ithaca College in the US, it is commonplace that news outlets are relying on content that folks have shared, but not every newsroom has a policy regarding how to verify and authenticate this information, especially information shown and shared on social media. Adornato's recent study of local television stations in the US showed that 1/3 of their news stories came from information on social media that was later revealed to be inaccurate or false, and that nearly 40% of their newsroom policies did not have guidelines for verifying or authenticating information from social media. This post-truth era of fake information has therefore begun to undermine collective grasps of objective truth. In a recent Pew Research Center survey, 81% of respondents claimed that partisans not only differed about policies, but also about basic facts. This erosion of the truth also threatens wider social, political, and cultural areas of life. For example, at a 2016 news conference, the then US President Barack Obama denounced fake information and its spread on social media, warning that such developments actually threaten democracy. He cautioned that, and I quote, "If we are not serious about facts and what's true and what's not, and particularly in an age of social media when so many people are getting their information in sound bites and off their phones, if we can't discriminate between serious arguments and propaganda, then we have problems," unquote. He continued that, and quote again, "because in an age where there's so much active misinformation and it's packaged very well and it looks the same when you see it on a Facebook page, if everything seems to be the same and no distinctions are made, then we won't know what to protect," unquote. Since the recent US presidential election, in fact, both Facebook and Google have been facing criticism over how fake information on their platforms and services may have affected the presidential outcome. Both companies are accused of not addressing their seeming complicity in the growth and reach of fake information. Critics accuse Facebook of influencing voters in favor of the then president-elect Donald Trump by facilitating the spread of misleading and false stories, such as one that erroneously claimed that Pope Francis endorsed Trump during the election. According to an analysis of Facebook activity by BuzzFeed, in the 3 months before the election day, the most popular information, that is, the stories that generated the most user engagement through likes, shares, and comments, was produced by hoax sources and partisan sites instead of from authoritative mainstream news publications. Critics also accuse Google of giving more prominence to fake information from dubious websites than from credible sources. Facebook and Google, though, recently responded to this criticism by announcing that they would no longer tolerate the growth of fake information by cracking down on the revenue sources of websites that peddle fake information. Google claims it will ban websites that produce or provide fake news from using its online advertising service. Facebook claims that it will similarly prohibit advertising in sites that show fake information. Facebook also indicated that it is considering other possible solutions, including third-party or user-generated verification services, more robust automated detection tools, and easier ways for users to flag dubious information or content. These interventions by Facebook and Google are not only responses to these criticisms, but also acknowledgements, however tacit, of their considerable power in information dissemination. Although these interventions are arguably steps in the right direction, they nevertheless can present the start of a possible slippery slope of corporate censorship. As the Facebook chairperson and chief executive Mark Zuckerberg acknowledges, and I quote, "The problems here are complex, both technically and philosophically. He warns that Facebook in particular needs to be careful not to discourage sharing of opinions or mistakenly restricting accurate content. We do not want to be arbiters of truth ourselves, but instead rely on our community and trusted third parties," unquote. In addition to these corporate interventions, fake information can also be countered by good journalism and improved information literacy skills. So first, legitimate newspapers must ensure robust verification of information taken from social media platforms and services. Second, journalists need to learn how to better identify fake information from online sources. Third, people must learn or improve their information literacy skills in order to better discern, assess, and analyze different kinds and formats of information from diverse sources. Further, information literacy should be incorporated into educational instructions in various contexts, including in schools, universities, and libraries, in order to help prepare students and people and the public to navigate the expansive information environment. Indeed, most people, after all, genuinely want objective information, and they need it to be accurately reported on by legitimate newspapers and sources. As Martin Barron, the executive editor of the Washington Post, states, people will ultimately gravitate towards sources of information that are truly reliable and have an allegiance to telling the truth. So information literacy can help support truth. It can help support truth by helping counter fake information's corrosive effects through twin approaches, identifying fake information and locating credible information. So the first approach to counter fake information is to actually identify it. Identifying fake information is best exemplified by the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, guidelines for identifying fake news. First, consider the source. Investigate the website, its mission, and its contact details. Second, go beyond the headline. Read the whole story. Third, check the author, conduct background research to determine if they are legitimate. Fourth, consider the supporting sources. Examine them to see if the references support the information. Fifth, check the date in order to know if the information is current or relevant. Sixth, interpret the tone in order to determine if it is satire, serious, or fake. Seventh, check your biases in order to see if your personal beliefs or perspectives may affect the search. And finally, consult experts, librarians, professionals, fact-checking sites, etc. The second approach to countering fake information is to locate credible information. Locating credible information is best exemplified by Leslie F. Stebbins' Finding Reliable Information Online. First, focus on the best source. To shift focus to locating reliable sources for the information first, and then the information itself. Second, avoid psychological biases of searching, such as how questions are framed, how easily information needs are satisfied, how results affect perceptions, and how other factors influence searching. In other words, think about how you're thinking and adjust the search accordingly. Third, carefully consider information from a crowd, amateur, and expert. Recognize when expert information is necessary or when amateur or crowd-sourced information are good enough. Fourth, contextualize the information to help better understand the information's purpose, motivation, and bias. Fifth, compare and corroborate the information. Compare the information with similar resources. Corroborate the information through examination and confirmation with independent and even unrelated sources. Sixth, determine the search's depth by recognizing when the information is good enough or a shallow search, or when more substantial research is required for either more precise or specific information, or a deep search. So in conclusion, the blurring of the boundary between the fake and the real is likely to continue to grow online, especially because it seems to reaffirm people's biases, prejudices, and opinions. Fake information, after all, is the currency of this post-truth era. It is an era when people tend to reject credible information, even when they may recognize it as truthful, in favor of information that agrees or aligns with their particular perspectives, beliefs, and worldviews, even when they may recognize it as misleading or dubious or questionable. As Grathwohl, the Oxford Dictionary's president, predicts, given that the usage of the term hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, I wouldn't be surprised if post-truth becomes one of the defining words of our time. It will therefore continue to have a corrosive impact on information. But the aforementioned twin information literacy approaches, identifying fake information and locating credible information, help provide some practical ways to counter the spreading scourge of fake information. Adopting these approaches can help us to begin to break this alarming and intensifying siege on credible, factual, and legitimate information. Hopefully, the rise of fake information in a post-truth era will help raise the value of and respect for real information in a more truthful world. Thank you.